So now you know about runtimes and the build packs that are available for you in Bluemix. We're now going to explore the development environment itself. So I'm going to open up a terminal window. Actually, I'm going to open up a couple. And I want to differentiate them too, because I'm going to have one for Django and one for Flask. I've already installed virtualenv on this machine. I've also got Python installed, and the default Python as well as Python 3.5. So this is going to be my Django window. Let's just create a directory where I'm going to keep my source code, and also where I'm going to create my virtual environments. So if I have a look at what version of Python is installed, by default it's 2.7. Python 3 is also installed, or 3.5.1. And I can find the paths of both Python and Python 3. I create virtualenv. I can specify which Python version I want in this virtualenv. And I specify 3.5. So now, when I switch on the virtual environment or activate it, I see that the default version of Python I have is 3.5.1 in this environment. Let's do the same for our Flask environment. Oops, let's do it correctly. Virtualenv. And now we have our Flask environment, and we just need to activate this one as well. So let's go to a browser, and we're going to grab hold of our source code, which is fortunately held up in GitHub, so you don't actually have to type everything in. You should be able to copy and paste. I will show you how some of the code is created, initialized, but you won't have to do that. So if you go into GitHub, look for Watson Developer Cloud, which is the home of all the Watson Developer Cloud samples as well as the SDKs, and here you can see a varying set of SDKs which are wrappers around the REST APIs that form the Watson Developer Cloud themselves. And most importantly for us, there is a Python SDK. If I search for Python in this repository, I'll find Python primer companion code, which is the source code that you're going to be using. We're still based on the first part, in this case episode 1, where we're just creating the application shell. We won't be adding in language identification. That will come into the next part. So we'll just download this code. We grab the zip file, and we'll post it into our source directory, which will be a sister directory to environment directories. We've got the Django and the Flask environment setters. Unzip the file. And just rename it so that it's actually convenient to find and get into. So, going back into our Django environment, go into this source code that we just downloaded. We'll get rid of the zip file using the correct syntax. We'll go into the first directory in which the source code is just about initialized. So we go into the Django project. You'll notice there is a Watson project, or Proj Watson. I'm going to show you how to create that shortly. We open up our editor. Here I'm using Atom. Go into the source directory for the Django project. Let's have a look at the Django project. No, actually, let's have a look at the Flask project to start off with. There are four key files, four files that define the project. But there are these four files define how you're going to run the project. They describe the project. The first one is the manifest file. This is a key file that tells Bluemix how to deploy your application. You'll see the build pack, which should relate to the build packs we've seen before, and the Cloud Foundry stack, which, as I said, relates to the system and the framework software, things like the web server, and then the domain, which here is set to the UK. There is a proc file, and this tells the Python Flask framework how to actually deploy the application, how to start the application. The requirements text file is a Python requirements file. It tells Python, the Python runtime, which prereqs to pull in, and I really only defined Flask and Watson Developer Cloud. And then we have the runtime, where we define the runtime for the Python that we're going to execute. And I've just noticed that I've got 350 there, and I've got 351 installed. So there's a little bit of a mismatch, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. We'll go into our Flask terminal. So if you have a look at the requirements text file, these are the requirements. I really only defined Flask and requests at Watson Developer Cloud. Everything else got picked up. I install the requirements. That goes away and does a pip install. And let's do the same for the Django environment. So I'm going to show you how I created the Django project. The Flask project was actually just creating the application file, so it's not really so complicated. But for Django, I did a Django admin start project for Project Watson, and then I created the application using the managed PY, and the application I called Watson language. Principally because this part of the application is really only interested in language identification, language translation, alchemy language, and natural language classifier. But we'll come to that. So get rid of this temp directory I've created, because if you've downloaded from GitHub, you already have the source code. Let's look at the 4 key files for the Django project. Again, the manifest file, the requirements file, requirements text file for the Python requirements, the runtime, and instead of a proc file, I'm using a run sh file, which defines how to start this application. The advantage of this is that it allows me to do database initializations and migrations, although the application doesn't have any, and also create a super user account. So modify the name and host. Normally by default they're the same, but they don't have to be. Host is the URL name, and name is just your application name. Let's do the same for the Flask. So that when we get to deploy this in the next phase, the applications are created properly. Default the version of Watson Developer Cloud that has been installed in the GitHub repository is out of date, so we're just going to upgrade it to the latest version, which you'll do to be able to get hold of all the service updates. So the file was at 06, and the latest one as of recording is 018. So we should be able to get fixes, bug fixes, new services, new methods in existing services, and so on. So we'll recreate our requirements text file. Let's just check that it's been updated, because we need this file when we deploy the application. So now you have a development environment, and so you're now ready to create the application and deploy.